Good morning, everyone. I will be sharing my talk on Sapo, Sika, Sumya, exploring Indigenous Wellbeing in Northern Sagada. Let me just begin my talk with this incident months ago about the hashtag Proud to be Igorot challenge, which was sparked by a learning material which depicted Igorot. Okay, many of the Igorots reacted because this is a misrepresentation of themselves, and many posted about pictures about themselves showing some of them in indigenous attire. But as we know, Igorots are Igorot is the term used by Spaniards to refer to a group of indigenous people in the mountains, mostly in the Cordillera Administrative Region. Okay, and we know that Cordillera Administrative Region is composed of 6 provinces: Apayao, Abra, Kalinga, Benguet, uh, Ifugao, and Mountain Province. And these 6 provinces are home to most of our indigenous people here in the mountains. So as an Igorot, I would like to pose this question. Um, and if you're a member of an indigenous person, what are you most proud of? So you can interact with this webinar by typing in the comment section of this ICER live stream. Okay, so what are you most proud of? And this is one of the questions that I would like to address in this talk. The second one I would like to address is the issue of this one is a positive issue right now. We know that in Benguet, we have one of the highest standard of living here in the Philippines, and we have an HDI or Human Development Index of 0.88, and it's very high compared to Greece. In the region's poverty rate is 12.2. It's the fifth lowest poverty rate in the country after Ilocos region. The Human Development Index is based on 3 indicators. That's health, based on lifespan, and education, and then economic indicators. So looking at this got me thinking, what should be if um, because the Cordillera is home to indigenous people in our own language. How do we define um, well-being? As a member of an indigenous group, what should be our indicators for well-being? That of a good life. So this is my second question that I would try to address in this talk. Let me share to you the answers as I share to you as I go back to my experience, my story about how I rediscovered my roots way back. So as you can see in the picture, this is 17 years ago. So I'm the one here, and this is my grandmother who taught me the language of our place, and brought me and my siblings and my cousins back to the Ili, the village where we came from during summertime. And this is my co-researcher in my pre-thesis paper, Miss Tiffany Bawayan, who also comes from the same place. And this is her father. Okay, so not included in the picture are Emerald Calde, my co-researcher in the thesis, and Alma Tuyukan, who also went with us doing data gathering back in 2003. Also, Anne Heather Kiwang from Tajan went with us. Okay. When we started our research work back then in 2003, we had this notion that our topic was Sapo. We had this notion that Sapo was a negative kind of cultural practice that is used to curse other people. But then we found wrong, right? Because when we asked the elders, what is, what is Sapo, and the elders would ask us, what kind of Sapo would you like to know? Because there are a lot of Sapo, and we found out that Sapo actually is the generic term for prayer accompanying the ritual that people of our ethno-linguistic group would be doing. So let me share you my story. So the research was done in northern Sagada, where but before I do that, let me first introduce myself. Just as Mom Jandy introduced herself in the Indigenous way, let me introduce myself first in the Indigenous way. Just as when we did this research and we went to the hometown of my parents and grandparents, I introduced myself in the Indigenous way. So here it is. Takan si Kalangbay, apun dalikwan id agid, apun da ngina in kunbanayan id pangaan. So basically what I'm saying is I am Kalangbay, that's my indigenous name, named after my great-grandmother father's side. I am the grandchild of Likwan, the one standing beside me, who is from Agid. Here is the barangay. And I'm also a grandchild of Nina and Banayan, who is from Bangaan. Okay, so these are just the two of the barangays in northern Sagada. And Sagada, as we know, is part of Mountain Province, one of the province in the Cordillera. Now, northern Sagada has six barangays. I mentioned two. The third would be the Pido, fourth is Piglisan, fifth is Madungo, and sixth is Tangunong. Two of the barangays here are marked in red because they are the old villages, original communities in this part of Sagada. And the elders would say that just after the World War, there was an epidemic in Piglisan, one of the old village. And because of that epidemic, people had to relocate. Some people had to relocate. And those people who relocated created the other barangays like Agid, Bangaan, and Pido. That's why when we refer to Ipidlisan, um, people from Pidlisan would comprise of these four barangays. Okay. But like any other ethnic group in Mountain Province, the group is named Aplai. This comprises Aplai ethno-linguistic group comprises of the Western Mountain Province of Sagada, Lasal, Bauco, Sabangan, Tadshan are considered Aplai, and the language would be Northern Kankanai. That's why we have similar words with our Kankanai brothers and sisters here in Benguet. Okay, so this is the place of our study. But actually, we also did data gathering from here in Baguio, where our respondents would say that they trace their roots here in Sagada and that they have practiced Sapo. So here is a Google Map view on Google Earth view on my Erie. Okay. So before I share my story and share the reflections, the findings, the lessons we have learned along the way, I would like first to dedicate this talk in memory of elders who have shared their knowledge, wisdom, and experiences graciously, and to them who have gone before us. May their memories serve as a blessing. Many of our elder respondents, more than half actually, have gone before us. So this is in dedication to their memory, to the knowledge that they have shared. Also, I would like to express my gratitude for those who have shared their stories and insights in creating the lessons for reflection to be presented in this talk. Okay, so now before I delve in what we have discovered, let me share first a rough draft of the indigenous worldview or cosmology of the Sagada people. Like as you can see, we have in the center of this circle is well-being in relationship, good well-being in relationship, and there are three elements that should be kept in harmony, in balance. It's the spirit world or unseen or the adikaila, and the umili, the people, and the ili, and the ancestral domain, and the environment which composes of the natural resources. Now, these three elements must be held in balance, okay? Because these are interconnected and have strong relations. And if there's imbalance, usually the imbalance would come from people, umili, kasi there's a belief that one's actions have a positive or negative impact to oneself, one's family, in one's community, and environment, okay? And the action can cause a disruption of the harmony, okay? And there's also an assumption of yung Inayan belief that shows valuing of the sacred, valuing of this factor, and the Inayan belief would be the guiding principle for people that people must act as this and must not act. There are do's and don'ts because if people will do bad things, it would come back to people and destroy the harmony. Okay, the good harmony relationship of this element. Now, embedded in the people's belief is the belief of the unseen, Adikaila, the spirit world, which is comprised of the Almighty God, the Creator, the guardian spirits, and the ancestor spirit. Now, one of the example here is that sickness can be caused by when there's imbalance, the sickness can be caused by the unseen, okay? Or disasters can be caused by the unseen. For example, if people are disrespecting the environment, and it can come back to the people in the form of disaster. Now, here comes the elders, or the role of the elders to act as leaders, mediators, negotiators, and healers, so that the harmony in the place with the people and the environment will be restored. Okay, so that's the basic cosmology. Now we come to the Dakay as a central socio-political unit uh, of Sagada, where the Council of Elders would meet, brainstorm, discuss about issues, problems, and solutions for the community, and perform rituals and prayers for the well-being of the community. And take note that the Council of Elders is a collective leadership system. This is are comprised of elders who are respected in the community. Normally, for one to become an elder, first and foremost, he must be knowledgeable of the practices of the dapay and the lintag of the amam'a, or the laws of the elders that have been passed on from one generation to another. And next, he must be of good moral standing, respected in the community. That means that when one is respected, he is also his words of wisdom is consulted, and when he volunteers his work of performing rituals and prayers for people in need in the community. This is just council of elders have their own job too. They work in the fields, they help with their families, but they have this additional job of volunteerism. When a community need arises, they are the ones called for. Also, as a member of the Council of Elders, they must also be married and have successfully raised their children into guiding them to raise their own families too. Okay. So those are the Council of Elders. Now the DAPI is the Council of Elders of Men. So the question is, where are the women? The women are there surrounding, for example, when there are community rituals to be done in the DAPI, the men are there. Well, around the DAPI, or just around, or the women also group together talking and having their own conversations. Okay. When the women are also knowledgeable about the ways of the traditions of the Ili. Okay. Now, the DAPI serves as the social-political system that unites families and obliges families to participate in community activities. And actually, when there's a problem in the community, it is in the DAPI where the problem is discussed, and the elders will find solutions, and it will be spread. The solutions will be spread to the family. So we can see the interconnectedness of each one in this diagram. So let me just share you a story of one of our unforgettable research experience when we were having a conversation with one of the elders and in his porch. And then when we were asking him along the way, a snake that looks like this came to us, was crawling towards us. And Tiffany, who was my co-researcher this time, got pointed the snake that was coming to us. So we were scared. We stepped on top of the bench that we were sitting on. The elder saw how scared we were, and what he did amazed us because he talked to the snake and the snake listened. I'll just give you a rough translation of what he said to the snake. He said, "You snake who please go back to where you came from because these two ladies are afraid of you, and instead leave some blessings as you go back to where you came from." So after he finished talking, the snake would just stop like this when he was talking. And after he talked, he went back, U-turned, and went back to where he came from. So it was an unforgettable experience because we saw how elders can talk to nature. Now let me go to you the second question that I posted in the beginning. What should be the well-being of indicators? So let me share you this. The first indicator is Sapo as a representation of indigenous spirituality, which builds towards individual and community well-being. Now, what is Sapo? Sapo is it's not witchcraft or sorcery, but it's the generic term for the prayer accompanying the rituals. For Benguet, the counterpart would be Bonong. Okay. So according to the elders, this Sapo and the related traditions like the rituals were passed on from one generation to another through the Dapay system. It was acquired through listening and observing old men perform the practice, because in the Dapay, not only the old men are present, but also the younger men are present because it's a training ground for them. So when the old men are gone, the elders are gone, they will replace the elders as the next set of elders. Now, for most of the respondents, Sapo was not fabricated by old men for their own good, but rather for everyone's sake. It is a tradition passed on to us by our ancestors and will be passed on to succeeding generations. Actually, one elder was, we had asked them the question if, because majority of people from Northern Sagada are Christians, majority are Anglicans, and the rest are the rest belong to other Christian religion, okay? And some Christian religion would not be compatible with the indigenous belief. Like they think that the indigenous people are worshiping idols or worshiping other gods beside the Almighty. But the elder who had this dilemma would say that, why would I stop doing what I know is good if I know that this tradition would help others? For example, if someone got sick and they need somebody to do the prayer and ritual, would I stop doing this tradition because my religion says so? No, I have to do it because I know it, and I know that this would help the person or the family. So Sapo for them and the related rituals are designed to help people in the community. So there are two directions of why Sapo is conducted. One direction is that Sapo is believed to remove the lawa, the bad, the negative that causes the disharmony. It is used to cleanse the negative stressors in the community and in the person. For example, if one one's loved one died, of course we know that that person would experience grief, and grief would have those negative emotions. So what the elders would do would perform the Taoist ritual together with the staff of the Taoist to help stop or wash away the negative effects of grief to the person and the family to help them move on. So that's one function of Sapo. On the other hand, I'll go back to that. On the other hand, it tries to bring back protection and blessing. So it's a prayer that blessings be invoked for prosperity, good health, and protection of the people. Now let's go back to the lawa or the negative. When it is not stopped or it's not mediated, that the effects of the negativities be removed, these things can happen: sickness, broken relationships, hunger and famine, disaster, accidents, infertile wombs, and death. While on the other hand, if Sapo was done to invoke blessings, this can happen. Good health for the people in the community. There's Sumya and prosperity for the people in the community. Long life, matagu-tagu, fertile wombs, maganak, gratifying or presence of Sika, food security, presence of Sika, and good relationships or peace. Now, Sika, I'll explain later on. So they believe that when Sapo and the respected rituals are done, you are asking for protection and blessings. So the functions of Sapo is it can be preventive, curative, and restorative, or it can ask for divine justice. So preventive are some examples would be the Sapo of the Dawak, and Dawak is the ritual for people who are about to get married. So in this Sapo and ritual, the elders would ask for blessings for the couple so that they would have a good marriage and that they would be blessed with long life and many children, matago-tago and maganak. There are also rituals and prayers like for the Bugnas. It's a community ritual of thanksgiving and cleansing tied to the agricultural calendar of the place that asks for protection and blessings, and also advances cleansing of the community from any negative that has entered the community. Okay. On the other hand, there is the curative and restorative that can be example would be the Sapodidaos or cleansing ritual. It is used for cases such as death of a loved one, sin or divorce among couples, tawaw, mental sickness, shock, trauma, physical sickness, criminal acts, murder, and accidents. Like, for example, if one has met an accident or met a situation that caused shock, the person might feel that he is not, that something is missing in him, might feel like, we call it in Tagalog, tulala, not like himself, always staring into space, pale, cannot interact normally with people. So, in the belief of the elders, the abiik, part of the spirit of the person, has flown away. So they will do the Taoist and cleansing ritual and the Sapo to restore part of himself back to himself, to have a holistic person. Okay. So after doing that, the expected outputs would be healing, restoration, and stop loa from contaminating the family and community, and further negativities to escalate and bring back harmony and wholeness of the person and the community. Now let me go to the third point, and stop loa from contaminating the family and the community. There is a belief that when like for example, I'll take the case of Sina that's divorced. Actually, in the indigenous worldview in Sagada, Sina divorce is worse than murder. Why? Because it breaks the relationship within the family, which the family is the basic unit of the community, the ili. And when this family is broken, what do you expect will happen to the community or ili? So also, the elders would believe that Sina, when it happens and when it is not stopped by mediated by the earth, it will be it will be socially contaminating the community, makapaalis, as they say. So they have to do the doubtless to stop the negative effects. The negative effects might cause death to one of the family members or cause physical or mental sickness to one of the family members. So they have to do, the elders would have to do this to help the family cope with the effects of sin or divorce. Also, the negative effect here is that people who committed sin or divorce would be not treated, their social significance as a person in the community would be lowered. But with before they said that if a person committed sina, they will not eat at the same table with the family. Adi maiubong simpanangan. So, but if they do the sapudi daus and the daus itself, it will restore the person. But of course, he has committed or she has committed the act. Her significance or his significance will not be the same as before. Okay. I had some conversations with a culture bearer also from Benguet, a Kantanai from Benguet. This is similar to the belief also that adultery is not encouraged because if one commits adultery, you are like desecrating your ancestors because when a couple has married, their ancestors were present in giving blessings to this couple. So when one of the couple commits adultery, they are desecrating actually their ancestors and they're desecrating their marriage bonds. So as we can see, the examples here are situations that disrupts the harmony within the individual and within the community, and it brings negative effects within the individual and the community. And the purpose of Sapo and the rituals is to help cleanse this negative effect, stop this negative effect, and help bring the person into wholeness, into healing, and to move on. Okay? Like for example, okay, for criminal acts, for example, a person might be repeatedly doing bad things to individuals and to community, and there is the disciplinary role of the council of elders that they would take this person into the dapay, discuss what should be the punishment, and do sapudi doos or sapudi tingiting to cleanse the person to stop from doing. At the same time, there is bagbaga or guidance from the elders for the person to stop doing bad things. Again, a child of of an individual is a child of the community. Training or disciplining a child is a responsibility of the whole community. So that's for the curative and restorative part. But there's also the divine justice, the part that is often misinterpreted. Like for example, this is the Sapo where just give an example. If a case is a murder has happened and the murderer is not known, is there at large, what the elders would do is Sapo to find to bring divine justice to the victim who was killed and punishment to the person who killed that person. Okay, so the result when Sapo is conducted to bring divine justice, it can result to death. Now the elders would caution people to practice this kind of Sapo because it might have repercussions. For example, if the person doing and asking this is not clear or has a bad intention, just wants to harm the other person, the Sapo and the effect of the Sapo would backfire to the person and to that elder. They might die. So they are very careful in doing this. It can also be done for the welfare of a community. For example, back in the 1930s or 40s, one elder was killed by a neighboring ethno-linguistic group. So it caused conflict, and that's a no-no. So what they did was they did the Sapo of the Bayao. It's a community ritual. The elders who were there performing the rituals, asking the soul of the departed to exact justice for his unjust death. They gave him a symbolic match, bolo, for protection, and said that that the spirit of the departed should exact justice or revenge to that group who killed him. So what happened to that neighboring ethno-linguistic group is that butatu or mysterious fire with fireballs without people holding it, caused so that's the purpose of Sapo for divine justice. But again, elders would precaution people from using this because they must be of clean mind, clean heart, and they must not be guilty of any wrongdoing. Okay. So what makes it for Sapo and the related rituals to be effective? It should be facilitated by one major factor, that is unus or unity, or in the language of the Pidlisan, we call it machikchikom. Actually, this term is also used in songs, usually in the, I heard it when I was a child, machikchikom tako, which means a unity or a binding unity among the people that is hard to break because of how they help one another, how they do things for the welfare of the whole community. So it can be seen in one tradition like the Obo. When there is a need, the community will contribute, okay? And in the lintag of the Amama, they will obey because they know that what the Council of Elders prescribes to the Ili is something that would benefit everyone. Okay, we can also see that this Sapo and the rituals are interconnected with the traditions and are interconnected with the life cycle ritual from birth to death. There are always rituals associated, and the communal agricultural cycle. So let me present what the elders have shared. There are 6 times of the years: the Lakat, the August and September, which is the end of the harvest; the Pangat, September to October; Wange, November to December; Lubuk is March to April; Baoy, April to May; Latab, June to July. And usually there are community rituals like the Bugnas, which are done. Like for example, the Lakat, the start of the year. It would be Bugnas would be done, and an elder, a chosen elder, will be appointed by the Council of Elders to perform the sacrifice in the Patpatayan, the sacred tree. And during this time, ubayas, or rest days, are prescribed for the community members to rest and enjoy. And ngilin, do's and don'ts, are also prescribed in observance of sacred. So doing this would mean protection for the community and the people living inside the community. So we have discussed Sapo as an indigenous spirituality, as an indicator for well-being. Now we go to the next, Sika as an indicator for well-being. Actually, Sika is a result also of doing the Sapo and the rituals. So Sika is often illustrated by elders with a small pot of rice that can feed a big family and would leave them a feeling of fullness. They often counter illustrate it with what is happening in the cities. People will just work and yet will always feel tired and discontented. But with Sika, even with limited resources, one can feel one can have the feeling of contentment and satisfaction. Resources are enough for everybody. So in Sika, the antithesis would be Agum. It's a known negative description or characteristic of a person. So Agum is greed and is concerned only for oneself advancement, and has the absence of concern for others. So people in the community are discouraged to have Agum, and the opposite should be have concern for others. So Sika is facilitated by a social system of Ornos, unity. Remember the word I said a while ago, machikchikom, that the people of the community are united and has a sense of concern for others as seen in the indigenous management system, like the Sagudai, that's the clan forest management system, where when in the forest you take what you only need from these resources and don't take everything. You leave some resources for other people to use. In the Payas, the water irrigation management system, there's a system where um, the water is shared by everybody. Also, Sika is facilitated by a sense of gratitude, as seen in Thanksgiving rituals and sapos like Sapo di Sanga, Sapo di Bagnas, which are actually Thanksgiving rituals. Indigenous people believe that it is by the grace of the Almighty, by the grace of the spirits, that we are enjoying the goodness, the protection, and the blessings that we have. And we go to the third indicator that I would like to share. It's Sumya or Sumyaan. It's the flourishing life. Okay. So the flourishing life is not just only material, but also a sense of psychological flourishing, spiritual flourishing. So some of the sub-indicators of Sumyaan is matago, or to have a long life or healthy life, characterized by kudsu, a strong body and mind, and a long lifespan. This is always given to the sapo of people who are going to be married. Also with this maganak, which is to be fruitful, to have fertility of the human and animal wombs. May you have many children, and may your livestock, your animals, produce more for your family. Because in the indigenous world view, children are a blessing. To have more of children is to be blessed. And so, another thing is that they say that a community is sumya if it's green, as opposed to a community that is dry, brownish. So this is another indicator. And Sumyad, like Sika, is facilitated by a collaborative, caring, responsible social environment where there's sharing among the umili. It is seen in the phrase "Tipuyas ng gawis," or to share the good. Examples of this tradition can be seen in Ububo, the mutual self-help that started as an agricultural help system, but also went to other areas, like when there's a need, when somebody died, and there's a ritual, there's a way to be conducted. People will help, contribute to rice, contribute their labor. For example, men would cook, because they will be cooking a lot of big things, butcher animals, while the women will prepare some of the cooking materials, like peel potatoes, like those are examples, because in the ILI, there are gender complementary roles of men and women. So the antithesis of Sumya is ayo, or the wasting of resources. People of the Umili are encouraged not to waste resources, but to actually maximize these resources and use what they only need so that others also can use the remaining resources. Also, the antithesis of Sumya is disrespecting the lintag of the Amam'a, or the indigenous values. It's a way of disrespecting also the sacred. So with this, my conclusion for my first question is, what keeps me proud to be an Igorot is the indigenous values. And we must keep our indigenous values burning. We have, like, for example, we have this respect of our environment, respect of the wisdom of our ancestors. Oftentimes, during colonial times and even after colonial times, indigenous people would be labeled as barbaric or uncivilized. But as we delve into the knowledge of this indigenous people, we see that it is showered with a lot of wisdom. And then creating innovative solutions but culturally connected. Because as time changes, uh, collective leadership, collective brainstorming of solutions should also be done in consideration of the issue. And the last in this is IPS content creators. You can see that the content creator of the detected material was not an indigenous person. So indigenous people should also be challenged to create learning materials that would be passed on to the next generation, especially nowadays that we have indigenous people education. Yes, we are an oral tradition, but it's time that we put our value system, our ways into writing, record them. And while the elders are still here, nowadays that we have this technology, we can record what they can say before they pass on to the afterlife. So it's a challenge, but in a way, it's something that to be proud of the indigenous values that have been passed on from generation to generation. And my next conclusion is that the Indigenous Wellbeing Indicator can be seen in Indigenous spirituality that respects harmony with the unseen environment and the people, Sika, having a full and meaningful life, and Sumya, the flourishing life. So my story does not end here. As I continue to have conversations with my kailian and from members of other ethno-linguistic groups, I continue learning. And by the way, we have one of the best coffee in Pilisan. So welcome. You are welcome to have coffee with us. So ipayas ng gawis, iwas din Sumya. Share the blessings. May you have a flourishing life. I hope you learned something from what I have shared. And before I end, I would like to announce this Tango Community Library Ecocultural Learning Resource Center located in Bangaan, Northern Sagada. We encourage everyone who has conducted research in Sagada to please leave a copy of your research so that the community members can read about your research in Sagada. Oftentimes, we hear complaints from community members that many have done research in the community, but the research has not been given back to the community, or the research was given to a few individuals, of which not the whole community can access. So we encourage you to share your copy, a way of giving back to the community. Share a copy of your research. It can be e-copy. You just visit this in Facebook, Tango Community Library Cultural Learning and Resource Center, and you can upload a e-copy of your research. Or if you don't want to give an e-copy, you can also give a hard copy of research. You can post it and send it to the Tango Community Library Ecocultural Learning and Resource Center. So thank you very much for that. And lastly, before I end, I would like to acknowledge the following community partners who did a tripartite presentation on Sagada Indigenous Wellbeing. Matigan O, a respected elder in Sagada and Also, the Indigenous people mandatory representative of the municipality of Sagada who will be presenting his talk after me this afternoon. And Ma'am Dom-Ann Macagne, co-founder of Kasiyana Peace Healing Initiatives, also who would be presenting her talk this afternoon. Also, we would like to thank Alma Tuyukon, chairperson of Tango Community Library, Ecocultural Learning and Resource Center, who did groundwork in Sagada for this tripartite talk to happen. So thank you very much, and was Dean Sumya.